James Elder, welcome to 7:30.
Hi, thanks, Sarah.
James, you've been in Gaza for the first time since last November. What's changed?
I think a couple of clear things. When I'm in the north, where there is what's now declared as an imminent famine, just seeing the level of desperation, seeing, Sarah, people do hand to mouth, tens of thousands of people on the street, they are completely cut off. Seeing now babies die, seeing in those malnutrition wards paper-thin children, mothers who've done everything for so many months to try and protect their children from this relentless bombardment, now faced with starvation. And of course, just sheer devastation, Sarah. When I go around some of the cities here in Gaza, just entire homes, entire neighbourhoods turn to rubble. I've not seen that kind of devastation, annihilation, to be frank, in my 20 years with the United Nations.
Talk to me about that trip that you made, the visit you made to the hospital in northern Gaza, where you say there are children suffering from malnutrition. Can you describe what you saw in those wards?
Well, the first thing you notice in those wards is two things. There's mothers in tears quite regularly. And as I walk in and seeing a foreigner, there is just a relentless call in English and Arabic, Sarah, for a ceasefire. It really is the refrain across the Gaza Strip. And then it's children who are paper thin. It's mothers crunched over in tears because mothers, as I say, Sarah, who've done so much to try and protect their children from bombardments, and now they're faced with starvation. There's been a realisation over the last few months from parents that their ability to protect their children has been taken from them. The ability to protect your children is in the hands of someone else making decisions elsewhere. So there's a overwhelming sense of defeat from people, and children, some of these children that I saw, Sarah, I doubt they are still alive, such is their state. And many of them still had the wounds of war, which means that what happened was their family home was bombed, an ambulance went, and in trying to rescue people also found children who were malnourished, because most people can't get to hospitals.
Why is food and aid to take care of those children not reaching northern Gaza?
It's a great question. Obstructions, denials, restrictions. There's been such a war of words, and it's important questions to ask, but it's important we get to simple facts and truth on the ground. And the reality is that in the 6 months of this war, trucks coming into Gaza have been reduced by 70%, 70%. The reality is that there's a couple of entry points down here in the south where I am. There are crossings, Sarah, in the north, old crossings that could be used, which are 10 or 15 minutes from those mothers hunched over, dying children, from those people putting their hand to their mouth. 10 or 15 minutes, you open those and you change the game. And as it is, it's obstructions. UNRWA, who was delivering 50% of food aid to the north, is now officially blocked. For United Nations convoys going to the north in the first 3 weeks of March, 25% of those were blocked. These are the facts. And right now, facts matter, because facts and the distortion of facts is why we're seeing children dying.
So who has the ability to open up those crossings in the north that would get aid to the children that and their families that you're describing?
Israel has a legal responsibility to facilitate and to provide aid to that population. The facilitation means the environment is, the crossings are open, removing so many of the arbitrary restrictions, ensuring it's a safe operating place to operate, remembering that more of my United Nations colleagues have been killed in this war than any war since the advent of the United Nations. That is their legal responsibility under international humanitarian law. It actually extends to a responsibility to provide aid. Now, the aid is being provided by humanitarian organisations, but the facilitation is critical, and that's what still is missing.
Now, of course, the Israeli government says that they've allowed more aid in, they've allowed more trucks in, I think in March at least. And they say that once the aid gets into Gaza, it's not their responsibility to distribute it. To be clear, is it their responsibility to prevent that death, potential famine, the malnutrition that you are seeing?
Yes, this is not an opinion. This is international humanitarian law. Israel, as the occupying power, has that legal responsibility to facilitate and to provide that aid. And as I say, it's not that complex. The nutritional crisis we see and let's not forget, amid bombardments that are never ending, that nutritional crisis is man-made. It's preventable. We've heard that from the United Nations Secretary General and many, many other people with decades of experience. But in the same way it's man-made, it can be reversed.
Is it also true, do you know, whether Hamas is diverting aid from reaching civilians?
Look, when I'm on aid convoys, we go to hospitals and we give them to the matron of the hospital or someone else. So I don't know the specifics. Obviously, this is a war in a difficult place to deliver aid. But whether we are in Afghanistan or Somalia or here, we have systems in place and partners in place to ensure that the great bulk of aid goes to the people who desperately need it.
So once you're able to get aid into Gaza, what is the reason that it is so slow to get from the south of the country, where the crossing is open, up to the north? And points in between, I should add.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it is so slow, but for UNICEF, for example, and this would be similar for most other agencies, after we fill our truck at a warehouse, it must be loaded and unloaded 4 different times before it gets to those people we serve. Then there are the military checkpoints, the final ones where I've sat for hours, I've been turned around despite having a green light for days and days. These are the restrictions. This is how what is called the opposite, if you will, Sarah, of an enabling environment. And there is an intent there. And this intent, in the same way that we feel indiscriminate bombing, 14,000 children reportedly killed, is having a grave impact on civilians on the ground.
What is that intent? What's it for? What's the purpose of it?
I can speak to what it looks like at a humanitarian level for food on the ground. Militarily, of course, I couldn't, but we have seen time and again the sheer density of population here, the idea that half of all people here are children, to have now reports of 13 or 14,000 children killed. Gaza is breaking every record of humanity's darkest moments. Now, of course, this all stops with the ceasefire. Ceasefire enables aid to more easily flood across, stops these bombings that I can hear now, enables children for once to go to bed knowing they'll wake up, and critically gets hostages home. Somewhere here, abhorrent as it is and mind-boggling as it is, there's children in tunnels somewhere. Let's end that torment and get them home.
James, you're in Rafah, and we know that there's a possibility of a ground assault into Rafah. You're leaving shortly. Do you feel guilty to be leaving?
Oh, it's a terrible place to leave. You make friends here. You see what people are enduring. I stay in Rafah. I see Rafah almost every day, unless I'm in the north. I see it as a city of children, the people who've come here 4 or 5 times who are holding on, psychologically holding on as well. Their coping capacity has literally been smashed. We are in uncharted territory, Sarah, when it comes to the mental health of an entire child population. And so any voice we can raise to try and remind the world that a military offensive here in Rafah, a city of children, Gaza's last hope, will be catastrophic. So yes, it's never an easy place to leave.
James Elder, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Thanks, Sarah.